Blessings, family. Here we are at episode 10 of Bitcoin Explained Simply. I'm coming to you from Miami. I was working out. Well, actually, I did a nice walk today. I didn't actually work out. I did a really nice walk. I'm sitting here having this conversation with you by the water in Miami, and it is absolutely beautiful. So, there's a little story that I want to tell you about I'm just going to sit right here in the shade about among the trees and just have a good conversation with you about Satoshi Nakamoto. And Satoshi Nakamoto is the founder of Bitcoin, and it's unclear whether it's a he, she, or a they. And a lot of people have had a lot of guesses over the years as to who Satoshi Nakamoto is, but in reality, we do not have that answer. What we do know is that Satoshi Nakamoto was able to solve a problem for Bitcoin that no one before him had been able to solve. And what was the problem that he was solving? He was solving the double spend problem. Now, there had been many forms of Bitcoin before we actually had Bitcoin. There have been many kinds of cryptocurrencies or digital cash or digital money, but they all failed. And why did they fail before Bitcoin? It just shows you that it takes many iterations to be able to do something successfully. It doesn't always happen in one stroke of genius. Every invention of humanity has really been in a layering effect. We lay on top of what other people have discovered and done before we came along, and then we add another piece of the pie, we add another dimension to it, and here we have finality or the thing that will work. So I guess we could say that Bitcoin wasn't invented in one great stroke of genius. Bitcoin was invented by many people over many years who all contributed to the code, and voila, we have success. Yet it was after about 2 decades, right? Because as soon as we had the internet, why wouldn't the cypherpunks figure out internet money for us? I mean, that only makes sense. Well, when Satoshi Nakamoto solved the double spend problem, it became apparent, he wrote it in a white paper, and it became apparent that this could actually work this time. Well, what is the double spend problem? Well, let's look at email or anything digital that you send. If you send an email from one person to another, you're not sending a one-off of the email. You're not sending an original of the email, you're actually making a copy every time you send someone an email. Because you write the email and then you send it to someone. Now they have it and you have it. So that won't work for digital money because you can't send something to someone, send money to someone and still have the money. That's not going to be a monetary system that we can use. So we have to solve this problem that happens with digital goods. Anything digital can be easily replicated, just like an email. So he solved the problem through cryptography, a very, let me not get too technical because this is Bitcoin explained simply. He solved the problem of the double spend that through cryptography and the use of public keys and private keys, which we already talked about, you would be able to send value across the web and not still have the value yourself. This is very important because that's how money works. If you go to the flea market and you buy something from someone, you give them the money and you get the goods. This is how it works. So we can't have you go to the flea market and you give the person the money and you get the goods, but inside you still have let's say, you still have a $20 bill and you counterfeit the $20 bill that you gave them. It's a counterfeiting. It's in essence a counterfeiting. If you try to copy money and use the money over and over again, and in digital terms, it would be using the same email and sending it to 20 people and get, if each email is worth $10, you would get $200 worth of goods for $20, and that cannot work for the globe. So this problem was solved, and this double spend problem being solved, now we have Bitcoin because we have a way to prove, right? That's why Bitcoin is all about verifying. It's not about belief. And it's not about trust. It's trustless. We have a way to prove ownership of real goods. Let's call it a bearer instrument. Bitcoin is a bearer instrument, which means that you have a way of proving that you own it. And this goes to what my mom used to say. My mom used to say, possession is 9/10 of the law. So if you have it in your possession, it's yours. And this is why we also say not your keys, not your Bitcoin. Because if you give your private keys over to a company like Coinbase, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'm going to clarify. If you give your private keys to a company like Coinbase, those are the keys to your Bitcoin, and you ask them, here, hold my keys. You're actually saying to them, here, hold my property, and you no longer are holding your property. That's why we always say get your own custodial scheme going that works for you. And we'll talk about wallets and custody in another conversation. Right now, we're simply talking about Satoshi Nakamoto solving the double spend problem. Wrote about it in a white paper. The white paper is online, and you can pull it up. It's Satoshi. It's Bitcoin white paper.pdf. You can pull it up online and you can read it. And very fascinating that the white paper for Bitcoin was released on Halloween of 2008, October 31st of 2008, and it was right in the middle of the crisis, and the whole financial markets were also, of course, melting down. Someone behind me walking the dog. Financial markets were melting down, and guess what? They picked someone to be the fall person or the fall company for the meltdown, and that was Lehman Brothers. So, they had to have a scapegoat, so they all got together and they said, okay, who's going down for this? And the target was Lehman Brothers, but they were all doing dirty deeds, let's be clear, on the banking sector and the financial sector, and they are still doing the deeds that did not stop them. So if anything, it emboldened them to do even more dastardly deeds, which is why we have Bitcoin. So I say all that to say this, that, and then once the white paper was released on October 31st, 2008, the first Bitcoin were mined. In other words, they didn't actually do it until January of 2009. Satoshi actually did it, because a white paper is simply telling you, hey, I have this idea, I think this will work, and you lay it all out, your entire strategy, you lay it all out in a white paper, but we don't know it'll work because you haven't done it yet. And so that's why all these cryptocurrencies out here, all these shit coins out here that are telling you, we're going to change this and we're going to change that and we're going to put your baby on a blockchain and we're going to put flowers on a blockchain and blockchain technology is incredible. And then they do an airdrop and then they take all your money. Well, and then they get a tiny little fine. Some of them collect billions of dollars and pay a fine of like 25 million. Hey, that's an acceptable business expense. You make 40 billion, or even if you make 4 billion, I thought the number was 400 billion for one of them, but you make billions and you pay a fine of 25 million for masquerading as a security. Well, they just write that into the marketing, the expense, the budget of the company. So you don't really have to change your deeds. You can still do dastardly deeds as long as you can afford to pay the fine. It's not really the kind of world that I'd like my beautiful grandchildren to grow up in. And maybe that's not the kind of world that you want to live in either. So with that said, we didn't know if it would work. And so January of 2009, Satoshi, on his computer, he actually did it. He mined the first block of Bitcoin. It's still there. You can see it. It's called the Genesis block. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more about what happened after that in the next vid. Be right back with episode 8, 9, 10, 11, 10. It'll be on the vid. I love you. ValerieLove.com/wealth if you'd like to see our wealth programs. Peace.